Good evening, Internet, and welcome to Top Shift 57. Now, today is the 1st of February. We have just had the latest update to 2.005 or 2.05, which just covers a few small bug fixes and some fixes to the background simulation. Now, this is one of the things that I wanted to actually talk to people about today, and that was trading in general and how the background simulation works. So if I just pop over to the galaxy map, here we can see the galaxy map in all its glory. Now, each of the populated systems has a production type or an economy type, and those economies interact with the local stars depending on their trade values and their trade outputs and inputs. Now, this trade output and input happens in the background simulation, and it is shown. You can actually see it at work when you click on the trade routes like this. So here you can see I have technology selected for LHS 4032. And that shows the flows of goods that are of the technology subtype into and out of the system. Now, as you can see here, LH4031, that really is a foodie planet. It exports an awful lot of food, mostly to the most productive. Now, this trade happens at a standard rate. So, in the background simulation, there will be planets that don't balance. You know, they export as much food as they can. They balance their sheet and get income, and from that income, they're then able to buy other goods in from the other planets surrounding it. Now, the thing is that there are occasions when they have planets around here, which, of course, say you're using food as an example, they basically can't afford to buy the food from another planetary system. So therefore the demand for that food will go up in the market prices, and that's when the commanders will step in. If you, for instance, left the model running, some of these systems wouldn't be able to feed themselves, and then they go into famine states or different kinds of states, which is quite important when it comes to influence, which I'll be discussing later on. Now, the background simulation is constantly running. So I think it's every 10 minutes there's a tick, or some value where all the values are swapped around as if, 10 minutes of trade has gone on. Which explains why some of the price variations you can get from time to time on the market. So if you can see here, I'm just going to select everything. You can see that LHS4031 for a anarchy system, and there's not many agricultural anarchy systems, it does seem to have a nice trade balance. Seems everything though seems to be going into beta to Tunkeiti. Now, at the moment, I have a mission to go to YS and to land on a planet to deliver some said food. Now, this is going to be interesting because we've got a planet blob, but next to planet blob is planet Carrion, where I'm going to be taking my stuff. Now, one thing I didn't realise was this trading and these statuses that the trading generates also affects the minor factions within a system. Now, factions and systems are pretty interdependent from each other. For instance, here you can see all the factions the minor factions which are in this system. Now, you'll also notice that 3 of them are aligned to the Empire. So if I run jobs for these 3 Empire-based factions, I gain influence and they gain influence within the Empire and within the system. So you can see here that my reputation with the Empire has gone up, my rank has gone up. Mostly because I've run a couple of missions for the Empire in the hope of getting up to the rank of Baron so I can buy a clipper. Now, each of these little minor factions will then go into a state, depending on what's been happening. For instance, if the minor faction which owns a station has a famine against it, that means famine will appear in the little box underneath that faction. And that has an effect, another knock-on effect on the missions you can take. Normally, missions don't really have an effect. Well, missions do have an effect, they have a minor effect on the influence and your reputation with those minor factions. The interesting thing is when a faction goes into a certain state, such as famine, missions, only food missions will count towards your influence. There's a whole load of there's a whole table of the influences and their effects available on the Frontier website. Mr. Brooks went through it a couple of weeks ago, explaining how influence works. Now that's quite important, as we'll see later on. But in the meantime, it's enough of me gassing, so we'll head away on this mission. Yeah. Yeah, my head tracking seems to be a little bit off to this one today.
Ship released. Engines engaged.
Yeah, I think we'll leave the head tracking alone for the moment. It's a bit wobbly.
Landing gear retracted.
Right, as we're on one of these missions, we will now... Oh, one thing that we'll do is I'll switch off the trade filters, because it does make the map a little bit too cluttered. So, in there, in here, and finally there. So yet again we're going for a planetary landing. And it's on the other side of this planet. Now, this is one of the rendered planets. Oh, of course it would be on the other side there, wouldn't it? I'll have to unlock our hyperspace lock here. And then
Frameshift drive charging.
Go into supercruiser frameshift mode to get around it.
4, 3, 2, 1, engage.
And we're away. Of course, atmospheric planets we won't be able to land for quite a while yet. Oh wait, that's still locked. Lock the signal source. So there's the planet as we pass it. It always makes a nice little thrill when you see the surface details there. But it'll be a little while yet before we'll be able to land on those planets. Which brings me to speculation about Elite Dangerous 2.1, which is the next phase.
Frameshift drive charging.
Which is the next phase in the Horizons season. Now, there are several things that we know that are happening. The first and most obvious one.
4, 3, 2, 1, engage.
are avatars. Now, this is obviously your character creation. Obviously, it looks just like a sort of a portrait shot at the moment, but this is going to be what they're going to base. This is what they're going to base the walking around spaceships coming later in the game. When it's coming later in the game, well, your guess is as good as mine. Probably not this year, though. But one of the upsides of this avatar creation is that they're going to use the same kind of code to generate avatars for the missions and the personalities attached to those missions that you take. Now that is actually quite a nice thing because it gives the game a little bit more personality that I think this is missing. But one of the other very interesting things that I'm excited about is engineers. Now, going back to the influence thing, influence is important because the more influence you have with a minor faction, or with even a major faction, the better missions that you get. Now, some of the missions at the moment are borked, we know about that. But they are working on fixing them, and hopefully in 2.1 they'll have resolved those quirks and broken missions. But not all of them are. The majority of the missions do work absolutely fine. But back to influence, because one of the things that they're going to be putting in is crafting. And one of the things that you need to know about crafting is you need people to make the things you want, and those guys are called engineers. Now, throughout the galaxy, situated on planets only, because it is a Horizons thing, you will find engineers. Now, the idea behind the engineers is that you're supposed to drive about for a bit with your buggy. You manage to scavenge a whole lot of components or bits and pieces, and then take them to an engineer, and that person then will craft your requirement, whether it be a new improved shield module, a new improved gun, and a new improved hyperspace. That's what they'll be there to help create. Oh, this one looks as if it's going to be in the dark side of the planet. So we'll just wait until it actually turns whole orange, because it means it's actually behind us. And there's the wedding barge again. Ugh. There's an awful lot of wedding barges that fly around here. So the upshot is that you drive around your buggy, you pull out your materials, you take those materials to the engineer, and the engineer says, yes, I can make you a brand new kind of pulse laser. Cost you, and I'll need this as well.
Orbital flight engaged.
Oh, I think I'm coming in a bit too fast. Actually, I'm coming in very fast. There we go. Let's slowed it down a bit. So, the other thing is you've got to have influence with that engineer's allegiance. For instance, an Imperial engineer isn't really going to help you in any way or form if you've got a really good rank with the Federation. So again, it is a case of watching where your influence and running the right missions in order to... Oh, are we going to go into glide mode? Oh, glide engaged. Oh, I think we're coming in very fast. Whew, that was a bit scary. I'm not used to coming in that fast at all. Now, at the bottom of the altimeter on the right of the screen, you'll see there are 3 numbers, which is longitude and latitude, but one of the most important ones to see is the one underneath, which is the G rating. Now that one there
Docking request granted.
I'm going to assume that one over there is 7. Because it looks like a medium pad to me. Well, anyway, that G rating shows you how much gravity is present in the planetary system. Now, I've found flying this Python that the Python can handle 1, maybe 2 Gs on these reasonable thrusters. Oh, hang on. Oh, just look at that. That looked absolutely stunning, that night sky. And admittedly, so does the city. It does get me every single time I land on one of these things. You just sometimes get a little taken in. And it can be a bit distracting if you're not careful.
Landing gear deployed.
So as I was saying, yeah, the influence...
Docking successful. Engines disengaged.
The influence you have within a system is quite, or with a faction, is quite important, especially if you're wanting your right gear to be crafted up. Now, we do know that 2.1 is in development. We also know that they're doing a whole load of tweaks to the graphics, and we know they're doing tweaks to the AI, especially for commanders who fly backwards in combat. So they are constantly evolving the game. Now, the other thing to mention is the background story. Now, a lot of people have already seen this, but the previous episode of Top Shift, I took you to see the barnacles, and it seems that the situation with the barnacles has moved on yet again. We are now getting unidentified ships, which are, and now this is a bit the weird thing. The ships look very similar to ours, so you'll see Diamondbacks and you'll see Asp Explorers, but they move in such a way that it's not an Asp Explorer. There's a theory going on that the probes that were sent out to scan the ships have basically been downloading schematics for shipbuilding, and that these vessels, which are doing high-speed passes stations, are camouflage spies. Again, the Cannon Group and a whole lot of other people have been foaming at the mouth to try and find out what's going on here, but it's very nice to see that the plot is continuing to evolve. So, Frontier was at PAX the last couple of days. Apparently they did very well. On top of that, they also have given out certain PAX skins for your Cobra Mark III. So if you were at PAX, congratulations, you've probably got one of the skins. If anybody else is interested, there is a free skin available with the latest PC Gamer. That's always very useful. Now, just to show you a little bit of influence here, I go to the bulletin board. Make my delivery. I'll give the cargo. And here you can see that I've now gained influence with two Imperial factions. So I've helped avoid a famine. My reputation has gone up with both of those factions. And if I point over here, you'll see that I have now improved. Well, I thought I had improved. Ah, interesting, it doesn't seem to have improved at all. So, the only thing I can think about that is that I've improved by less than 0.5%, because obviously with whole numbers being involved here. So we could actually go for a couple of these surface missions, or little delivery for a big business plan and things like that, but at the moment I think I'm going to leave it there. Just quickly, I will mention Dave Hughes and I, that's the guy that's been doing the Elite Encounters role-playing game, which is the role-playing game of Elite Dangerous. I've been collaborating quite a lot recently on some ship-to-ship combat simulator rules. I'm pleased to say that we've made very good progress for the last couple of months, so hopefully with a bit of chopping and changing, I'll be able to use those rules with the Elite Miniatures games that I've got planned at present. And you can see some photos of the prototype games or the test games we've been running on on the forums. At the moment, things are still up in the air about if this is going to progress into an official product. But I think I'm not quite so sure whether I'll be able to make it to Elite Meet, but I am hoping definitely to make it to LadeCon, where I'll be demoing the game along with playing with a whole load of other Wartop games. Tabletop games over there. So, thank you for listening and putting up with my wittering, and good night.